Can the men follow suit? So we'll look to run you through some of the leading protagonists. We talked about Mo Farah, the national record holder, the double Olympic champion. He's the only man in this field who's gone inside 27 minutes before. But Hannah England, just a man that, you know, much to criticism myself, we're yet to mention, Mark Scott, enjoying a breakout season. He's the second fastest in this field on paper as regards to Mo being the quickest. But the key thing for Mark Scott is he's got to be on cloud nine given his performance of late. We've seen a 13:10 5,000 metres and a 27:10 10,000 metres. Mo's going to have to respect this man and his own teammate this evening.
Mark Scott is certainly the man in form. He's done some fantastic times in the last 12 months. Really made a bit of a breakthrough in 2018 with fifth place at the European Championships, and has just moved on so much since then. And this year will be his first real test on the international stage, and that journey starts tonight. So those two are the ones for the qualifying time. If they finish top two, they'll get that automatic Olympic qualification for the British team. But I think there's some really competitive. It's going to be a really competitive race between Mark Scott and Mo Farah tonight. They want the bragging rights of British 10,000 metre champion, which is on the line today.
Wow, this is interesting. And the opening 400 metres completed in 62 seconds by Sean Tobin. There had been murmurs that is maybe that 65-second lapping. Is that quick enough for Mo Farah? And I'm not suggesting that he said anything to the pacemakers as regards to what they were. But we can see, of course, if you are joining us, that wave light technology, that's way back in around about 9th, 10th, maybe even into 11th position in terms of trying to finish an anticipated finishing time of 27 minutes and 20 seconds, which is well in advance of the British Athletics Olympic qualifying standard. But Sean Tobin, a renowned Irish international athlete, he set a lifetime best at the Gateshead Diamond League. But Alex Seftel, it's quite interesting how this is all playing out at the moment, because the pacemakers are so far ahead of the chasing pack, and indeed it's Jake Smith, I think, who's taking the initiative to try and close that gap.
Yeah, and they're ahead of the lights as well. So the lights are at 27:20, which is 8 seconds in front of the Olympic qualifying time. And Jake Smith, yeah, as you rightly mentioned, and he's someone who said, I don't care who's at the front, I'm going to go for them and hold on for as long as possible, which is brilliant from someone who has made a real breakthrough and recent marathon performance in which he didn't take on water. He was just determined to keep going, and he said that his coach, if he saw him out there, would have taken him out off the course. But someone with supreme confidence leading Mark Scott at this point, and it just adds so much anticipation, Tom, to this race.
Well, the rule book's gone out the window, Hannah, isn't it? Because the example that's been set in all the races up to this is start out even, keep it ticking over. But this is really going to be interesting, because on paper, the only athletes who can live with this pace are Mohamed Farah and Mark Scott. Are we going to see something incredible, or we see someone's wheels significantly drop off in those closing stages, Hannah England?
I did not enjoy that first 600 metres. We've had some really good, steady starts to the race, and I don't know what was going on there. There's a few mind games, of sprinting off the line, trying to get that pole position, and then Jake Smith making an aggressive move to get back on the pacemaker. Let's hope from here on in it's smooth, but yeah, a lot of these guys are on their limit, and anything like that in the first 800, they could pay for that in the last few kilometres. So let's just hope they can settle down and run even pace from here.
If you are new to distance running, it's largely about that lactate management, isn't it? As soon as you get into past that lactate threshold, unfortunately your race is in a downward spiral. So you'd like to think that a lot of these athletes, so many miles, so much training, so much preparation. It was an awfully quick 61, 62 second first lap, but things are beginning to even out, and it's all, as we talked about Sean Tobin, he's a very accomplished pacemaker. He's pacemaked at some of the biggest diamond leagues last season, and he's going to be supported by David McNeil, the Australian, who he was a Rio Olympic finalist in the 10,000 metres. He has a lifetime best at 27:45. I'm not necessarily sure he's in that sort of shape, but the mechanics are there in terms of the calibre of these pacemakers to do the job to get him to 27:20, which is what we're doing at the moment. And currently, from a British Athletics perspective, it's a 1-2 with Jake Smith and Mark Scott, both looking exceptionally lean and fit. And equally, though, Hannah, the challenge has been laid down, and certainly from a psychological point of view, Jake Smith and Mark Scott are saying, well, whatever the pace is, we're going to be tucking in, and I want to win that Olympic qualifying spot.
Well, Jake Smith he's the man in this group that needs that Olympic qualifying time from Great Britain, and he has got to stick on those paces. And as you said, he's got the strength. He's done that 2:11 marathon, so you'd think even kind of an overzealous first half, his strength might come through, and you could still stay on that Olympic qualifying spot. It's interesting to see Mo Farah sit a little bit further back now. We've seen him do that an awful lot in championships, sort of chill at the back of a group and then move through. So Mo Farah sitting there in 5th place, if you don't include the pacemaker. But Amdouni there from France, such an accomplished, experienced 10,000 metre runner. Ran great at the World Half, so he was in great shape then. He is the reigning European champion because we haven't had a championship due to the pandemic. But Amdouni just tucked in there. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does. And I'm interested on the team competition as well. You've got 2 Spaniards already in that top group, but there's a lot of fast French guys. The British team should be in there in contention, but I like to see the battle between France, Great Britain and Italy for that team title, and France.
So as they've gone through 2,000 metres, we are evening itself out over the last 800 metres or so. Well, only time will tell in terms of what that opening 600 metres or so, in terms of how much damage that paid in anyone's leg. But Hannah has rightfully pointed out, from a British perspective, both from Olympic qualifying stakes, so anyone who doesn't have the time, and principally in that lead group, it's Jake Smith. He's up with the pace, which is in advance of the qualifying standard. It's set around about 27:20 pace, and the qualifying time is 27 and 28 seconds, so there is a bit of flux there in terms of leeway. But Britain, with 3 athletes in that leading group, means that, and it's very early on, but they could be closer, certainly on target at the moment, to securing double victory here in the European team competition. So it's still Jake Smith, his commentator, his coach James Thie is on PA commentary duties, so split allegiances for him, trying to remain strictly neutral, ever the pro that he is. I'm no doubt he'll be able to do that, but he'll be seeing his athlete right in front of his very eyes and thinking, how much damage did that opening 400 metres, 600 metres do to him? But rightfully so, he's got a lot of strength. Because as you talked about, Alex, 2:11 for a marathon at a Cheshire Elite Marathon, and something which he started as only looking to be a pacer. He's got to be so confident at the moment, Jake Smith.
It was incredible, and he kept going. But he's got to be slightly rueful as well, in theory, because that was obviously after the marathon trials, which, just to explain, took place at a wonderful layout at Kew Gardens. Brilliant event that was put on by British Athletics, and of course that has come more recently. So this is really, he will see at his big opportunity, and it's a big ask, but he's an athlete, with supreme confidence, and maybe he can do something unexpected. This is the sort of magical edge that we get to these races. Jess Jard missed out on Rio, but she's made it to Tokyo. What can Jake Smith do?
Aduni it is, who's just tailing those Brits, so it's British 1-2, but France in 3rd place, and Mo Farah, as Hannah's rightfully pointed out, is more than comfortable sitting a bit back from that leader. If anyone's watched Mo Farah's 10,000 metre races, certainly a major championship rival, he likes to take control inside that final mile and really just ratchet up the pace, particularly close to pretty much a sub 4-minute mile finishing speed. That's what it takes to become a double Olympic champion. It's going to be a big ask for him to try and go for a 3rd gold in Tokyo, but a lot will tell from this evening, Hannah England, in regards to how much track work he's maybe missing, given that for a number of years he has been specialising as a road runner.
Absolutely, and so they were through 3 kilometres there in 8:10, which is off my pace chart. I have 8:15 for 27:30. But I've got to correct myself, guys. Mo Farah doesn't have the Olympic qualifying time. I don't think he hasn't done a 10 kilometres with a 10k right on the track within. Forgive me, you forget that when the calibre of athlete he is, you forget the technicality that he has to tick that box today, and that will play on his mind as well. I'd forgotten that, and I'm surprised. Apologies to anyone that's screaming at their screen, saying Mark Scott is the only guy for the British team with a qualifying mark in that pack.
That is the case. So in order to be guaranteed automatic Tokyo selection this evening, you need to finish in the top 2 from a British athletic perspective, but inside that qualifying time, which has been set at a mightily tough 27 minutes, 28 seconds exactly. But so far, it's still very early. I certainly don't want to read too much into it, but at the moment, and we've perhaps as I say that, as we look up now, David McNeil, in terms of that wave technology, he's just asking to, just looking over his shoulder saying, can you come with me? Can you come with me, guys? And it's actually Amdouni is the only one willing to push it on. And then for the first time now, we see Mo Farah begin to see Alex Seftel. That gap's just a bit too big for my liking, and Mo starting to play closer attention towards the front.
Yeah, and this is where we're seeing Mo's race management head show up a little bit, and Jake Smith, I'm not suggesting for a moment he's naive, but he's gone out with such confidence out front, and he knows that Mo Farah is the one behind him. And just how do you face up to that challenge? Well, no problem really for Jake Smith, but he will have a battle throughout this race, 25 laps of it. And as this front group is getting a bit smaller and smaller all the time, in fact, Mo's ability to manage it will be questioned also, with the Frenchman still up front there, and Mo hasn't really closed in the last 200.
Abdi of Belgium, and Mayo, who seems to be just hanging on there at the back there, the Spaniard. Surprising to see him, because he's not the quickest on paper in terms of the Spanish athletes in this A race, but he's the man who's sticking to the task so far, and no doubt benefiting from at least being in that group of athletes working together. But it's another 400-metre circuit completed. They have 15, well, just shy of 15 laps remaining, and David McNeil, the Australian, an Olympian in his own right in Rio, he's doing his job. He's required to go to halfway, and as Hannah pointed out, they were in advance of that 27:20 wave light finishing time. They're operating more closer to 27:10, which would be a huge personal best for Amdouni. It's very close to that mark that Mark Scott himself in this breakthrough campaign, I say breakthrough because he's been bubbling under, he's been running qualifying times for a while, but to go way under that with that incredible run stateside in February. He's the third fastest in the world this year, and he's a man that Mohamed Farah, Hannah England, despite all his accolades, he'll know that if it's him in the closing stages, he's really going to have to pull out all the stops to ensure his place on that plane to Tokyo.
And I think the other advantage Mo has on his side here is Bashir Abdi there in third place for Belgium is a training partner and a friend. I would not at all be surprised to see those two start to work together in the latter half, in the second half of the race. They won't want to let Amdouni go. He's a quality athlete that you want on your side, that you want in your pack. So they'll be keen to close that gap, I'm sure. But yeah, when you look at the Mark Scott versus Mo Farah for the British bragging rights tonight, I think Bashir Abdi could play a part in that.
And of course, British Athletics via Team GB, because of course it's not British Athletics who send the team to the Olympics, it's Team GB. They can select up to a maximum of 3 athletes. So Jake Smith, who's been slightly detached off the back of that lead group, he knows if he can maintain that qualifying standard, if he's not in the top 2 British Athletics standings, at least if he can get that qualifying time under his bag and then maybe go and perform if he is required as regards to the British Athletics Championships in 3 weeks' time. That'll be where they'll most likely contest the 5,000 metres, just to try and substantiate his claim. But I'm sure if he was to achieve that qualifying standard this evening, he would be in pole position to join if it plays out the way it's the current race is predicting, as Mo Farah, Mark Scott, and then potentially Jake Smith. But he's got a lot of work to do here, Alex Seftel, because he's really beginning to drop back.
And you said that James Lee was battling 2 duties. He just stepped away from the PA to say, come on, Jake, come on, you've got this. Because, well, he's really being thrown into the deep end, Jake Smith, and is battling there. But, yeah, Farah's battling as well. The pace is getting quicker. It was 2:46, then 2:43, and 2:42 through 4K as we come up to 5.
So we're through halfway and just inside 13:40. So, yeah, the pace is hot. It's operating in and around that 27-minute 20, but as we show quite sensationally and emotionally in the women's A race, how much can be gained if you have still got another gear to go through those final 800 metres, which the previous form guide would suggest that Mo Farah is certainly someone who likes to keep something in reserve, Alex. Well,
yes, certainly. Mo Farah has not raced 10,000 metres on the track since winning gold in London in 2017. Mark Scott 27:10, so there's so much question about how the two of them will be split, but two athletes, of course, in front of them at the moment, the Belgian and the Frenchman. Just to give a quick bit of context, we said 13:39 for the leader through halfway. Well, that's only 1 second slower than Jake Smith's 5,000 metre PB, and he's got the second half of the race to run now.
Hannah, your thoughts now? We're into the business end, aren't we? They've certainly gone through halfway. It's been a bit messy early on, but they've settled into a nice rhythm, and it's an intriguing competitive battle out there.
So we look at the front there, we've got Bashir Abdi and Amundi of France, and they've raced each other time and time again, whether it's European Cross, whether it's European Championships. Like, they're used to racing each other. I think this will feel very familiar for them, but you just want them to keep an eye on that clock. You just want them to keep an eye on those green lights and not let them go. But you can see Amdouni there, again taking up that lead, trying to pull the group back to Dave McNeil. He looked like he wanted Abdi to do a bit of the work for him, but Amdouni doesn't want this pace to drop off those green lights one bit. Mark Scott is looking good. He's not left the shoulder of Mo Farah the whole race. And Carlos Mayo there of Spain as well. This would be a big improvement for Carlos Mayo. He's just sticking to his task, having a very quiet race at the back of that group. But it would be a big breakthrough performance for him. And
it's Amdouni now who's got a fair bit of daylight here as regards to his bid to secure this European Cup 10,000 metre crown and take notable scalps as regards to his Tokyo exploits. If he's looking ahead and thinking, well, I'd certainly expect Mohamed Farah to be amongst the medalists. What about me? He's more renowned certainly on European perspective. He was the reigning European 10,000 metre champion, but if he can take the scalps of Mark Scott and Mohamed Farah in terms of his build up to Tokyo, who knows what he can go on to achieve. But all full credit to David McNeil, the Australian, who was, from what we understand, what we were told pre-race, he was only required to go to 5,000 metres. He's done an exceptional job in actually going pretty much close to a kilometre further. So he's setting it on the race as it needed to be done. The pace is there. Amdouni is on the lights, and it's now up to that chasing pack, Alex, if they want to, from a team perspective, try and upset the apple cart from France, and Britain if they want to take that individual honours in that European Cup 10,000 metres.
That's right. So it's the first three and their times that count towards those European 10,000 metre Cup overall standings. So Great Britain was so strong, of course, in the women's race in that regard, and we will see medal ceremonies at the end of the competition. But for now, of course, this men's race is yet to be settled, and you've got two Brits lying astern, just as we hoped they'd be, really. And it's going to be so interesting to watch it unfold between Scott and Farah. But Amdouni setting brilliant pace out front, 2:46, so a touch slower as he came through 5 kilometres. We look at the 6K split was 16:24, and he's just inside that as he puts a lap on his teammate Falcao.
And there is a change in that third British athlete placing. It was Jake Smith for a long time who was on the back of that lead group, but unfortunately he appears to be going backwards, and it's Emile Caresse. Actually, Jake Smith, his evening is over. As I just look to my right-hand side where you typically find the high jump track, unfortunately he stepped onto the infield, so his race is over. So it's Mohamed Farah, who is in second place overall from Mark Scott. That's the first two British athletes in the European Team Cup perspective. But the third British athlete is Emile Caresse, the Leeds City athlete. He's bang on the 28-minute wave light technology. He went past Jake Smith, and he's in there with a good pack. He's got plenty of athletes and bodies around him, which again, Hannah, we can't forget this team element to it. The fact that Emile Caresse, from a British perspective, he's got athletes in and around him, will keep pushing him forward in terms of his finishing time.
Emile Caresse has got a fantastic group there. They look really well organised. It's a German in the lead at the moment, but they're changing that pole position. They're really helping each other. They've got those red lights. And Emile Caresse, that 28 dead, it would be a Commonwealth Games England standard as well. So we'll keep half an eye on that for Emile Caresse. So look for Amdouni here, back on those green lights, using these lap runners to push himself forward. This is the biggest gap, I think, we've seen between Amdouni and the chasing pack, which at the moment is led by our double Olympic champion Mo Farah. And Carlos Mayo, to me, looks so good. He looks smooth. He looked great in the European Cup last week, but at this stage he looks really good, and this would be a big breakthrough for him. But this group is working well together. Mark Scott, I don't think he's been more than half a metre behind Mo Farah, almost stalking him there, trying to get those British bragging rights and take the British title that's on the line tonight as well.
So just to remind you, if you are just joining us, this is the Muller British Athletics 10,000 metre championships, which incorporate the Olympic trials as well as the European Cup 10,000 metres. Morhad Amdouni of France is our race leader. So at the moment, he's been looking to take home individual European Team Cup honours. But from a British athletics point of view, the intriguing prospect at the moment that's playing itself out is that only the top 2 athletes can guarantee selection for Tokyo at the moment. Mohamed Farah leads the race, the double Olympic champion, but he does not yet have a qualifying mark. Anyone looking at the wave-light technology for an indication, that is set at 27 minutes and 20, so it is 8 seconds ahead of what is an Olympic qualifying standard, but Mo Farah is awfully close to that, Alex Steffel, in terms of the cards are in Mark Scott's hands here, because he knows there's not a British athlete in sight. I need just to keep going and I'll be on the plane to Tokyo. Mo, we know he'll make a move at some point, but he's got to be careful not to go backwards too far, because he's going to run out of opportunity to claw back that time.
I suppose so. Mark Scott, he's got a big challenge on his hands, but over the last few years he seems to have built great racecraft as well as running some incredibly fast times across a number of distances. So really he should be someone with great confidence once again. And interesting to see what happens as the two just cannot be split. Interestingly, I've just done some maths, and by around 3 seconds at this moment in the race, Great Britain are on target to win the team standings. But as I say that, really, Amdouni, the Frenchman, has got a little bit further away since I made those rather intense calculations.
And as he comes past us here across what is the finishing line, there's a first signs of strain there on the Frenchman's face. He is beginning to have to work hard for them. It's all shaking up things in terms of that chasing pack, and it's actually Abdi and Mayo now who are beginning to lead the charge. Mark Scott, unfortunately, treading water ever just so slightly. So Mo Farah, not only has he got no British teammate to try and help him and keeping him engaged in terms of where he stands Olympic selection-wise, he's also got his work cut out, Hannah England, to try and get in front, get him back and on pace with this race.
Well, he's proved me wrong that him and Bashir Abdi potentially didn't have a team plan. Bashir Abdi has taken a jump on the field there, much like we saw with Ravi, the Italian athlete, earlier in the evening. Bashir Abdi has just put a spurt in. Carlos Mayo is doing his best to go with him. He's not quite on him. But Bashir Abdi, I think, will be looking down the track towards Amdouni and probably reeling him in now. Amdouni does look fatigued. He's slipping off those green lights for the first time. He looks laboured. He's got that half marathon strength that might pull him through. He's got these lap runners to look at. But for me, Bashir Abdi of Belgium is clawing back Amdouni of France with every metre that goes by. As you can see, the lap runners, respectfully, they're moving into lane 2 to give Amdouni that inside lane and the shortest line. But Bashir Abdi coming through the bell now. Not the bell, apologies. Coming through the line now, about 7 seconds behind, with Carlos Mayo for company, and Mo Farah coming through with 5 laps to go as well. He is off the Olympic qualifying time at the moment. He needs to put in a huge effort if he's going to secure that Olympic qualifying time. And Mark Scott a little bit further back, still in that 5th place overall in this European Cup race.
We're inside the final 2 kilometres. It's France from Belgium, from Spain, from Great Britain, because many thought that potentially this could be an easily, or I say with all due respect, a Mo Farah, Mark Scott, you guys decide the order in terms of 1-2. But Alex Seftel, this is what we love about competitive sport. We can have a form guide, we can have season's best, we can have personal best, but the occasion stepping up. And at the moment, I'm beginning to sense Amdouni is beginning to tire, and maybe Mayo, the Spaniard, who now actually comes onto the shoulder of Abdi, is he potentially a race? It's too early to call, but the Spaniard's having a great run, it's fair to say.
Well, it really is, yeah, because Teferi, the Israeli woman who was leading that women's race so comfortably, was closed down by McColgan, but at one point that looked so unlikely. Mo Farah always seemed to have a mental edge over his opponents. It's a different Mo Farah now, but he's hoping to set himself on a path to another set of Olympic glory, I should say. But Amdouni really the one that's now in the limelight, and we have to pay respect to that, how he's beaten such a great champion in Mo Farah.
We have to go back to 2011, so almost a decade ago. Those World Championships was the last time Mo Farah was beaten over 10,000 metres. I can't call it yet. We've seen him time and time before deliver, and when all the odds are stacked against him. But it looks as though potentially Mo Farah's dream of going to a third Olympic gold in Tokyo is currently being shattered, but he's still got opportunity to try and claw it back. But as we look at the race out in front now, it's still Abdouni who has the lead, but he is being closed down by Abdi and Mayo. And you talked about this, Hannah, we've seen it in previous races. It's those who go under the radar, and Mayo, he looks as though he's grimacing, but they can no doubt be responding by the fact that the Frenchman is coming back to him with each stride that they take.
I think Carlos Mayo will be happy every lap that ticks off. He has run 10,000 metres before, but he's more accomplished over the lower distances. And as you see, he'll be coming up to 1k to go there with Bashir Abdi. And Amdouni looks tired at every 100 metres that goes by. He made a brave bid to get that gap, to stay on those green lights, but he's going to pay the price for me. I think Bashir Abdi and Carlos Mayo are going to be overtaking him anytime now.
And it's all changed in the European Team Cup perspective, Alex Steftel, because for one point it looked very comfortable for British Athletics, but Mark Scott is going to be swallowed up by that 28-minute pace second chasing group, and in there are two French athletes.
Yeah, that's right. The latest calculations, 8.5k, that France were actually 8 seconds in front as far as that aggregate time was concerned, but could all change as we know.
So we're going to approach the final 800 metres, and for the very first time it's Mayo of Spain, the man who has a lifetime best of 28 minutes and 48 seconds, operating way in excess of that. It's uncharted territory for him, but he has company. The race is far from won yet. He's got Amdouni and he's also got Abdi. And Hannah England, you've been in this situation before, not over 10,000 metres, but when a race is tight and you're heading into those closing stages, it's all about knowing when your go-to point is in order to give yourself the best chance of ensuring a really strong finish across that line.
You have got to judge your effort right, and the margins are even finer at a race of this distance. 25 laps, there's not going to be much to choose between these guys, and it's who kicks at the right time in the right effort and can get that victory. You can see Amdouni almost brought back to life with those guys coming up on his shoulder. He looks fresher now and he's rallied. He's not ready to let these guys run away and beat him.
It's Mayo from Abdi, from Amdouni. It's going to be these three that decide out the podium positions from the European Team Cup perspective. It's a fascinating team battle behind the intriguing story as regards to Mo Farah. Is his career arguably over? Because it doesn't look as though he's going to achieve that Olympic qualifying time that would guarantee himself a spot on the plane. From a British Athletics trial perspective, Mark Scott is no longer in the second British athlete position, so even he hasn't guaranteed his qualifying spot. But we'll part the British Athletics perspective until that plays out in front of us, because out in front, Mayo of Spain, he's digging deep. You can see the amount of work he's having to try and break Abdi, and also Amdouni, the Frenchman, who's maybe taken a little breather. Hannah England, just a quick comment as regards to how do you see this one playing out? If you were a betting lady, who would you put your money on right now?
Bashir Abdi. You gave me the crucial 5 seconds. Abdi looking good there for me, and Carlos Mayo potentially a little bit hard too early. And as you see, Bashir Abdi swinging around the lead with 100 to go, but Amdouni, who did so much of that leading, is not ready to give up this race yet.
So it's Amdouni, the reigning European 10,000 metre champion. He becomes the European Cup 10,000 metre champion.